Hi, this is a quick video to show you how to package up the System Center 2012 Service Manager console as an AppV package and then use Config Manager to deploy that with its dependencies and in a user-directed model rather than per device. So first of all, you need a reference machine to actually do the sequencing on. So this is a non-domain joined Server 2008 OS. I'm using Server 2008 because I'm also going to be using this package within a terminal services environment, but it does actually work using the 2008 on Windows 7. So first of all, you can see that we've not got all of the dependencies that's required for Service Manager console. One of the main ones is the SQL analysis objects and also the report viewer. So I've got the report viewer already installed, and I'm installing the actual dependencies for the application locally on the machine. I'm not going to capture them as part of the AppV sequence. So I've already got my prerequisites handy. So we'll manually install the SQL analysis objects. Just a next job. Done. Launch the sequencer console. I'm going to create a new package. Standard application. We're going to do a custom installation. I'm going to call it System 2012 Service Manager console. Now, it's always recommended to keep it as a 8x3 file format for the folder, so we'll call it SCSM 2012-001 for this example. That then should prompt us to actually run the install. Once it's prepared the OS ready for capture. Now, rather than running it as a manual install, I've actually got a batch file that I prepared earlier that just runs it with a set command lines to make sure it runs it silently with the console, accepts all the end user license agreements, disables the custom improvement program, and just sets the registered owner. Prefer to set the registered owner via the command line because it doesn't generally tend to pick up what's been set as the Windows one, and you'll get some randomness in there. So the sequencer now says we're ready. So we'll run this command. Off goes the install. We know when the install is complete because this window will disappear. Doesn't usually take too long. There we go, that's complete. Now we tell it we've finished installing. The AppV sequencer will then scan the operating system for any changes that have been made before it was started and then after. Now, for some bizarre reason I've noticed with this, it doesn't actually capture the main Service Manager icon for the installation, just the Service Manager shell. However, what I tend to do here is just manually run the install. Up comes splash screen. Console should then load and present us with connection dialog. At this point I just cancel out. Because this machine isn't domain joined, I'm not going to be able to find Service Manager server from that point. Take to collect the extra system changes. Give you the information that some files were excluded. This is because I've got certain exceptions within the packager to say don't capture the files within my local temp directories, so they can be safely ignored. However, I do need to customize it at this point, because we're missing that shortcut. Now I'm going to remove the Service Manager shell because I don't want my users actually accessing that. I'm just bothered about the pure console. And I need to browse to the executable that I want to actually present. So within our C drive, that's the executable. We'll give it a friendly name. Service Manager console, and we'll just add the location for the start menu as well. Easiest way to do that is just pinch it from the shortcut itself. Make sure it appears OK in here, so we've got the extra backslash. Here we go. Give it another run to build up the first streaming blocks for the AppV package. Again, back to the connection dialog. I'll cancel it at that point. Continue through. Like I say, I've already tested this and it does work on the 64-bit Windows 7 environment as well as the terminal server. Important to note that because I'm packaging it on a 64-bit 2008 R2 environment, I can only use this again on Windows 7 64-bit. If it's needed to go out to 32-bit environment, I would have to package it on a 32-bit environment because the Service Manager console has two different installs, one for 32-bit and one for 64-bit. At this point we can just save it out. However, I'll go into the actual editor. This gives you the chance just to check over a few of the things, like what files were captured during the install. Check which ones are needed. Same with the actual registry side as well. I did go through earlier when I was testing this and got rather strict with what it was capturing and cut out quite a bit, and it did actually fail. So for this example we are just going to leave it with its defaults. However, it probably can be streamlined a lot more than what I presently have it. So once you're happy with that, save it out as normal. So save out the project console. I've already done that. So if I flick to our workstation with Config Manager. So within here we need to create a new application. We'll manually specify some details. So this is our System Center 2012 Service Manager application by Microsoft. Can give it lots of keywords, etc. These are for the self-service portal that you'll see in a minute. We're just going to call it Service Desk and Incident Request Change. We'll give it an icon so it looks a bit nicer. Now I've already manually got locally got the Service Manager console installed. So I'm just going to use the actual executable to pull the icon off for it. We're not going to add in deployment types just yet. So Config Manager has this idea of deployment types now rather than the old packages and advertisements. So I want to create a deployment type of an AppV package. So this is useful where I can now actually have in there listed the different types, so I could actually have an MSI install based as well, so if I wanted to do a local install. For this example, AppV is all I'm going to choose. Choose my manifest. That should pull back the rest of the information for me. Just going to shorten this name a little bit. Tell it to download no matter where. So the requirements, it's already picked up from the manifest file that this is just for 32-bit and just for 64-bit, both Windows 7 and 2008 R2. And then we need some dependencies. Now this is important because this is an AppV package. The first thing we're going to need is the AppV package. The AppV client on the machine, sorry. So I'll specify that. So that now gives us a dependency saying that the actual machine that we target this at must have the AppV client installed. Now I've got two choices here. I've got either the AppV client for the 64-bit OS for the desktop version or the Remote Desktop Services client. Now both of these are already packaged within here and they have their own requirements on. But I also know that I need to have Microsoft Report Viewer, so I'll specify that. So I've packaged these up in advance. Report Viewer 2010. Notice I've got it set to it auto installs. And I also need the SQL ADMO objects, which are again contained within my and they're the three main common prerequisites that we actually need for the AppV package for the Service Manager console. The reason I've specified them is because when we do try to actually deploy this out to a device, well, we're not actually deploying it to a device, we're going to deploy it to a user group. When we do, when it tries to run, it will actually assess them dependencies first and then work out whether it needs to install them before it will allow the AppV package to actually deploy. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to do a deployment. So we're going to deploy it to a collection. I want to deploy it to a user collection, but I don't presently have one. So what we'll do is we'll just go to our User collections, software distribution, create a new user collection, so service manager console. In Config Manager 2012 you have to restrict it to a top level collection. Now in this case we're just going to choose all users, but you might have a more generic level collection that you want to restrict it to. We'll use incremental updates so we get new additions to this group a lot quicker. Name. We'll give it a criteria for this collection, so it's going to be user resource and a group name, and where that is equal to, I should have it in my list, Corpsoft Service Manager Console. So that should give us a new collection. Give that a second and it should now show us the members. So this is an Active Directory group that I have that Config Manager's picked up for its Active Directory discovery. I've got 2 users in it and I've specified this as dynamic query to say create me a collection based on that group. As I add new members, I've got the incremental update checked, so it will add new members very dynamically without having to wait for a full scan, so it should update every 5 minutes. So back on my deployment, I can now choose that as my target. Automatically distribute my content for dependencies, so if I didn't already have them on my distribution points, it will assess the thing that I'm trying to deploy, in this case Service Manager Console. It would find my AppV client, it would find my SQL analysis objects and my report viewer, and also push the content for them out to my distribution points. I'm going to make this an install action rather than uninstalling console, and I'm only going to make it available. I don't want request authorization. I'm going to display all my updates, all my information alerts about this install, and that's it deployed. So it's not actually going anywhere now, it's just been made available within my self-service catalog. So this is the machine that I'm going to hope to use it on. You can see from the add remove programs, yes, I've already got the AppV client installed, and it's got the prerequisites from the AppV client, but I do not have my SQL analysis objects and I don't have my report viewer. So if I have a look within my application catalog, I now see that I've got System Center 2012 Service Manager Console available. If I'd put more details into the actual package, I could have in there things like links to the documentation for it. I can see my keywords, so I should be able to search for things like service desk and still find it. Click my install. That'll kick off the process. It's now going to look at my computer. It's now going to actually look at what my actual requirements are for this. That's it complete. You notice now it's actually downloading the additional components. You can ignore this one below, that was from me previously when I was testing. You can now see it's actually now installing my prerequisites. That's 2 components remaining. If I refresh my add remove programs, I should start to see there's my analysis objects installed, there's my report viewer installed. Oh, and it's now telling me the installation is complete. So I should find on my start menu a new group for Service Manager. There's my AppV launching it. Up comes my console. Connect to my server. And that was bad timing for it to actually log me off UAG. So unfortunately that was very bad timing to actually drop off from UAG. Back here, the console launched. I'll just launch that again to show that it does actually launch and load correctly, and I'm not using any cut or edit points. So So again, we can see that it's running it as an app3 package. Into the console it goes, and I now have a fully working Service Manager console, working as you'd expect and interacting as if it was a local install. And everything works as expected. I can use the ping commands. You'll see in the action log. There it goes. Remote desktop. Well, that's going to work because that computer's turned off. But it interacts and works beautifully as an app3 package. Now, I haven't tested this for any long amount of time. Initial indications appear that it works fine, so I advise you do your own longer term testing before you actually start rolling this out in a production environment, because as always this is a demo and within a demo environment. Thank you very much for watching.